Back in 2014, I was lucky enough to catch the LA premiere of Whiplash with Miles Teller in attendance. I remember someone in the audience asking him, if you could play any role, what would it be? Having come of age in the South, Miles said his dream was to portray Elvis.
I'll take it so seriously because I don't think they'd ever necessarily gotten young Elvis right.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But doesn't really matter because Whiplash has left a larger impact on our cultural imagination than any modern Elvis flick. I rewatched it for the first time in a decade, and man, every frame of this film still hits hard, especially the final performance. That ending. What is it about this simple story about pursuing greatness at any cost that makes it so impactful? Sure, a lot of it can be chalked up to Teller and Simmons' stellar performances, the excellent tunes and editing that will make your palms sweat, but I'd argue these elements add up to something more than just style and competent execution. I think Whiplash, especially its ending, reaches us on a legitimately spiritual level. And I mean this in the most literal way possible. Whiplash functions like a modern religious myth, minus the religion. No, the movie doesn't say anything about spirituality, but it does tap into the same psychological mechanisms that make religious myths resonate, specifically passion myths, or stories of intense suffering for a higher purpose. We've been religious creatures for a long time, so even if we no longer follow those beliefs, we may still adapt religious thinking to secular contexts to maintain a sense of spiritual elevation. And when we're watching Andrew beast through non-stop brutal agony culminating in the sublime madness of that final moment, we're not just appreciating an incredible piece of filmmaking, we might just be feeling a little hint of salvation. So what can the story of Andrew and Fletcher tell us about modern modes of spirituality? Does this have any bearing on whether Fletcher's cruelty is justified? And how does cinema factor into delivering us the transcendence we crave? Well, to find out, we're gonna have to dive deep into one of the decade's greatest stories of obsession, and also get a little visit from the Phantom of the Opera. Sync up to my tempo, cause we're about to dive in.
Not my tempo!
But first, a quick recap. Whiplash follows Andrew Neiman, a first-year jazz drummer at the prestigious Schaefer Conservatory. Andrew's relentless dedication catches the eye of infamous conductor Terrence Fletcher, who handpicks Andrew for consideration to play in his elite studio band. Fletcher initially seems to favor Andrew, but any displays of affection are short-lived as he begins to subject him to relentless psychological abuse, manipulating him, insulting him, throwing chairs at him, demanding grueling hours, and instilling fear at the prospect of delivering anything less than utter perfection. Obsessed with making the cut, Andrew breaks up with his girlfriend and isolates himself, practicing until his hands bleed. Andrew pushes himself to the limit and gets promoted to core drums, but a series of unlucky circumstances leads him to maniacally speed to a performance, ending in a brutal car accident. Highly concussed, Andrew stumbles to the stage and tries to perform, only to be dismissed and humiliated by Fletcher, making him snap. Burned out, Andrew testifies against Fletcher, gets him fired, and both are banished to a mundane, normal life. Months later, the two unexpectedly reunite at a jazz club where Fletcher invites Andrew to play in a professional concert, only to sabotage him on stage by giving him charts he doesn't know. Instead of slinking off, Andrew takes control of the performance with a face-melting solo, and Fletcher begins to guide him. The two share an intimate moment of mutual recognition as the music swells. The end. Now, before we get into it, I want to tell you guys about this video's sponsor, Vessi, the ultimate everyday shoe. Where I live, the weather can never make up its mind. It can be sunny when I head to work, pouring rain when I'm on my way home, so I need shoes that can deal with the madness, and Vessi's weekend sneakers are just the ticket. With Vessi's waterproof tech, I don't have to worry about rain or those lake-sized puddles that accumulate near my apartment. My feet always stay dry. Their sleek, minimal design goes with anything from work to weekend plans. I'm not the kind of guy who likes wasting time thinking about what to wear, so having one pair for the whole day is perfect. Whether I'm riding in a cafe, walking my dog near the seaside, or hiking in the forest, Vessi keeps me feeling comfortable and confident so I can focus on the stuff I care about. So make every day a little easier. Visit vessi.com/JaredBauer now for 15% off your first pair at checkout and start exploring with confidence. And now, back to the show. Alright, let's break down the relatively simple thematic elements in this story of ambition. Unlike the cutthroat scene at Schaefer, everyone in Andrew's personal life is woefully content with mediocrity.
You get to be my age. You get perspective. I don't want perspective.
His dad is a high school English teacher who never became the writer he aspired to be.
My dad's a writer.
Oh, what's he written?
I guess he's more of a teacher, really.
Andrew asks out the charming Nicole, but she too doesn't share his drive. She's unbothered by her aimless tenure at a non-elite institution.
I go to Fordham.
What do you study?
I don't have a major yet.
Unapologetic about yearning for the comforts of home in Arizona.
I feel really homesick sometimes.
And unashamed that her mother never realized her Hollywood dreams.
Well, she did want to be an actress when she was my age.
Both Nicole and Mr. Neiman offer Andrew care and affirmation, but it just doesn't do it for him. He needs the hard stuff from the foil to these figures, Fletcher, whose approval is withheld to an insane degree and requires no less than literal blood, sweat, and tears.
There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job.
After burning out, Andrew embraces a life of more humble aspirations and even reaches back out to Nicole, unsuccessfully. But in the end, Fletcher pulls him back in, and Andrew finds himself once again addicted to their shared intoxicant, the relentless pursuit of perfection. The beauty of Whiplash is in its simplicity. We've all been seduced by the allure of greatness and can respect the romantic struggle of giving up everything for the chance to taste it. There's nothing terribly philosophical about it, but it's often the case that within the simplest stories we find the most deeply ingrained cultural assumptions, namely that greatness requires intense suffering. Yes, Fletcher isn't demanding suffering per se, he's just pushing people to their limits in the name of motivation. But in practice, this amounts to relentless pain.
Alternates, you want to clean the blood off my drum set?
The camera is fascinated with the intensity of Andrew's drive and sacrifice, lingering on his bloody hand in the ice, sweat splashing off cymbals, his nasty hand wound, etc. Fletcher often cites figures who, had they not been pushed to the brink, may not have derived the motivation necessary to reach greatness. For example, Louis Armstrong.
I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them. Otherwise, we're depriving the world of the next Louis Armstrong.
Armstrong definitely had a rough life. He grew up in poverty, his father left when he was young, his mother was driven to the streets to make ends meet, he was sent to a reform school, and endured racial discrimination his whole life. But when it came to his mentors like King Oliver and Peter Davis, sure, they pushed him, but it was far from the borderline dehumanizing behavior of Fletcher, who's all too willing to break people, including one student who completely cracked.
His name was Sean Casey. Sean died yesterday.
But Fletcher's most common refrain involves an incident in which legendary sax player Charlie Parker was driven to perfection after Joe Jones threw a cymbal at his head.
You know, Charlie Parker became Bird because Jones threw a cymbal at his head. I told you that story about how Charlie Parker became Charlie Parker.
Joe Jones threw a cymbal at his head.
Exactly. Cries himself to sleep that night, but the next morning, what does he do? He practices.
While it's true that Jones's disappointment motivated Parker to practice obsessively, in reality he didn't throw it at his head. According to music historian Chuck Haddix, Jones just removed the cymbal from his kit and threw it at his feet. Still a dick move, no doubt, but that embellishment really drives home how we romanticize the endurance of agony, how suffering is cast as a rite of passage for artistic greatness. And I'd argue that this idea of the artist forged through adversity persists not because it's great history, but because it's great mythology. A mythology that Whiplash taps into and makes that final scene hit us on a spiritual level. In 1962, cultural critic Susan Sontag published The Artist as Exemplary Sufferer, an essay in which she claims that in our modern mythology, we've replaced the figure of the saint with the figure of the artist. In the Christian tradition, suffering was seen as a path to spiritual purification and closeness to God. Saints endured pain not only to emulate Christ, but also because they believed it would burn away sin and weakness, refining their souls like fire refines gold. For Sontag, our more secular times haven't erased the potency of these kinds of stories. Rather, we've just tweaked them by replacing saints with modernity's most, quote, exemplary sufferer, the artist. Like a saint who withdraws from the world and sacrifices everything for their faith, Andrew alienates himself from family, rejects Nicole's love, and endures intense pain in pursuit of his highest ideal, musical excellence. Just as saints endure trials from God to prove their devotion, Andrew's struggles with Fletcher are a trial by fire that will either lead him to glory or ruin. But there's another figure Sontag identifies as fulfilling this modern mythological function: the tortured lover. Per Sontag, the modern contribution to this Christian sensibility has been to discover the making of works of art and the venture of sexual love as the two most exquisite sources of suffering. And part of what makes Whiplash so powerful is that it gives us the intersection of both, because while the film's content is about two artists sacrificing for greatness, its form borrows heavily from romance films, specifically tortured love stories. Now, obviously my point is not that Andrew and Fletcher are in love, no. Rather, it's that Whiplash plays with the structure of love stories, but here, the love is not between two people, it's between Andrew and Fletcher's shared obsession with greatness. Take the meet-cute rejection trope, where an initial dismissal ignites romantic tension.
Will you dance, Mr. Darcy?
Not if I can help it.
For example, in the movie Bad Timing, an initial obvious connection between our two lovers ends in one of them performing disinterest as a form of flirtation.
Are you gonna let me by?
In Whiplash, Fletcher happens upon Andrew as he's practicing and even entices him with a taste of affirmation.
So you know I'm looking for players.
Yes, sir.
Then why did you stop playing?
But just as quickly as he dangles encouragement, Fletcher snatches it away. Unimpressed, he leaves abruptly, though not without one last tease of hope.
Oopsie daisy. Forgot my jacket.
Here, their introduction establishes potential connection, and the rejection ignites Andrew's obsession with achieving Fletcher's recognition. Later, their relationship enters our next trope, the hot and cold / playing hard to get phase. For example, in Call Me By Your Name, Oliver gives Elio mixed signals. He seductively massages his back, feeding their budding attraction, only to then distance himself and kiss Chiara, a tactic that intensifies Elio's longing. Similarly, after Andrew shows up the core drummer, Fletcher singles him out for an exclusive opportunity.
Room B16 tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Don't be late.
But when Andrew arrives, it's empty. He waits for 3 hours only to realize it was a test of his dedication, Fletcher toying with him to heighten his obsession. In these kinds of love stories, if a lover wants more from their partner, they'll publicly display their affections to someone else to spark jealousy. And in Whiplash, Fletcher plays the same game. After the band secures victory in a competition, Andrew is feeling confident. But just as he reaches this moment of validation, Fletcher rips it away. Without warning, he brings in an alternate drummer to audition for Andrew's spot, and then gives it to him despite his utter mediocrity.
Perfect, Connolly. You walk in here an alternate, who knows when you could be the new core.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Thanks.
That
Later, Fletcher reveals it was all just a ruse to motivate Andrew.
All Connolly ever was to me was incentive for you.
Another well-worn romance trope is the secret benefactor, in which an obsessed lover acts as an invisible hand guiding their object of desire towards success. The most obvious example is Phantom of the Opera, where the Phantom's obsession with Christine leads him to advance her career and sabotage her rival. During a competition, Andrew is entrusted with holding the core drummer Tanner's music charts. He sets the folder down, turns his back for a second, and when he looks back, they're gone. And since Tanner doesn't have it memorized,
It's my memory. I need visual cues.
Visual cues.
Yes, it's a medical condition.
Andrew gets the gig. While it's never explicitly established what happened to the folder, the most likely theory is that Fletcher orchestrated its disappearance to see if Andrew had the chops to step up. Every obsessive romance reaches its boiling point, an explosive breakup where passion turns to destruction and mutual ruin. In Whiplash, after a grueling 5-hour practice, a flat tire, forgotten drumsticks, and a car accident, Andrew falls out of tempo, gets canned, and bum rushes Fletcher, resulting in both of them getting expelled. And finally, like most romance films, Whiplash ends in a grand romantic reconciliation. Sort of. After everything, Fletcher and Andrew share a seemingly heartfelt moment, leading Fletcher to offer Andrew a second chance, an opportunity to play in front of the music world elite. Turns out, it's a trap.
You think I'm stupid? I know it was you.
Fletcher tries to humiliate him, but thing is, Andrew took his words to heart and refuses to break.
Because the next Charlie Parker would never be discouraged.
So he marches back on stage and belts out a dizzyingly sublime solo. And in this moment, despite being a situation designed for his ruin, Andrew and Fletcher reconcile. Not in the sense that they like each other, they finally match each other's tempo, achieved a mutual recognition of dedication so intense that it verges on destruction. Andrew and Fletcher become one, not in love, but in artistic synchronicity. In this moment, our two most potent mythological structures of quote, exemplary suffering merge, the artist and the lover. Now, it's worth stepping back for a second and talking about the abruptness of the ending. Most movies build to a climax, then end with a resolution that shows us a new, often improved status quo. But Whiplash ends at the climax. There is no resolution. We never get answers to the two core questions of the film. Will Andrew become a legend, and is Fletcher's cruelty justified? And yet, it doesn't feel jarring. It's actually quite satisfying. You could claim that the concert speaks for itself, that Andrew's solo solidifies his future as the GOAT, and that Fletcher's methods, while harsh, undeniably produce results, all without explicitly stating it. And that's a solid take. But I think we should resist the temptation to interpret Whiplash's ending and conjure our own resolution, to suggest that it's making an argument about modern temperaments or values. Sometimes appreciating a film should be more about understanding why it moves us rather than what it means. And with Whiplash, it doesn't really matter if Andrew becomes great or if Fletcher was right or wrong. Feeling the overwhelming spiritual high of that final scene, the culmination of the trials endured by the artist lovers, I would argue is itself the point. It's about being swept up in the sheer force of human will, of feeling a taste of that awe, catharsis, and transcendence we've mythologized for centuries. If Andrew learns anything in the movie, it's not that he will become a legend or that Fletcher's cruelty is necessary. It's that for the artist, there is no forever. There's only the moment. During an awkward dinner in which his aunt and uncle heap praise on his cousins for mediocre achievements,
School record, school record, school record. It's Carlton football. It's not even Division 2, it's Division 3.
Andrew claims he'd rather die young, broke, and alone if it meant being remembered forever.
I'd rather die drunk, broke at 34 and have people at a dinner table talk about me than live to be rich and sober at 90 and nobody remember who I was.
It's the classic myth of artistic immortality, and we'd like to believe that those who achieve it in some way taste eternity. But no, the movie ends at the climax because the moment itself is the resolution. Eternity isn't an achievable destination. All that exists is the fleeting instant when everything locks in, one transcends the self, and eternity condenses into a single moment. Whiplash isn't amazing because it says something profound, but because it makes us feel something profound. It's about inviting us to share in a singular soul-stirring moment, the kind that fuels some of our most sacred myths. A moment that I suspect cinema will remember forever. Hey, y'all, thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out bestie.com/JaredBauer for 15% off your first pair of waterproof shoes. Also, be sure to subscribe because the next video is on Barbarian. Appreciate you all. Have a great summer. Peace.